You just can't get enough, can you? You cannot resist the irresistible pull of this kind of subject. When you hear pro wrestlers involved in bizarre and regrettable situations during their off hours, you flock toward them like moths to a flame. Probably a flame started by a wrestler and a rib gone wrong. And it's hard to blame you because there's an undeniable allure to the very topic. Something about the mighty men and women of the ring in street clothes confronted out in the wild by unorthodox weirdness. Throughout Cultaholic's lifetime, we have never gone more than a year without reporting these demented wonders to you, and the year of our Lord Haku 2024 will not be any different. Before we start, let it be known that some of these following tales, while certainly amusing, are also cautionary and should not be replicated in any form by you, our dear viewers. Remember, the individuals involved here are professionals, and that's what's truly scary. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 crazy wrestling road stories that defy reality, Part 7! Join us! Number 10, practice makes perfect. It doesn't take much for a fight to break out between any two wrestlers, even if they're generally on good terms. Veteran wrestler Dr. Tom Pritchard, aka the more honest Pritchard, recalled an instance in Smoky Mountain Wrestling where he drew the ire of friend and top babyface Tracy Smothers after making a disparaging comment about Tracy's intellect one night. While traveling the following day, Pritchard saw Smothers and the Rock and Roll Express stopped at a rest area and decided to wipe the slate clean. Except when Pritchard got out of his car to talk, Smothers tried to wipe his slate clean by taking a swing at him. The two wrestlers began throwing hands when a police car suddenly pulled over. Confronted by a couple boys in blue, Pritchard and Smothers explained that they were practicing the moves that they were going to do in their wrestling match the following day. Yep, right here in this rest area parking lot. Honest, officer. The cops bought it, but before they could return to their squad car, Pritchard and Smothers started jawing again and resumed scuffling. Threats of arrest quelled the fight once and for all as Pritchard and Smothers chose apologies over handcuffs. Number 9, beer for Allah. Long international tours can take their toll on anyone, especially pro wrestlers. Packing a bunch of heavyweights onto a standard bus like sardines for a multi-hour drive will understandably make the average grappler stir crazy. Stir crazy enough to need a drink, or 2, or 12, or all the damn beer you have. One night in Germany, WCW corporate employee Richard Steinberg bore witness to what happens when a bunch of frazzled wrestlers have an opportunity to stock up on libations. A long day of travel in the German city of Halle resulted in a demand from the Nasty Boys that they stop at the nearest convenience store. After 10:30 that night, the two buses pulled over, upon which upward of 20 grumbling heavyweight wrestlers flooded into the store, beelining toward the liquor section, which they proceeded to empty. I mean, just imagine being the meek little shop owner seeing all of this go down. According to Steinberg, not one wrestler had their wallet, so he felt obliged to pay for everybody's copious purchases, dipping into that night's merch take in order to do so. Steinberg added that every wrestler ended up reimbursing him, except for Brian Knobbs and Jerry Sags. Now that is just nasty. Number 8, pounding the rock. Wrestlers are no strangers to chasing highs, especially in the form of the substances we most associate with that sort of high. In the late 80s, the man we know best as Raven was coming up in the wrestling business out in Portland and was looking to make a score one night alongside veteran wrestler Len Denton, who performed under a mask as the Grappler. They went to the house of a connected friend they figured would have what they were looking for, only to find out he wasn't there. Instead of leaving, the two entered the dilapidated home, replete with holes in the walls, seeing if any of the good stuff was left lying around. Sure enough, Raven thought he struck the mother lode, yelling to Denton that he'd found a big one. Before Denton could do anything, Raven crushed and snorted an entire white substance that he naively assumed was cocaine. Denton quickly realized it wasn't coke, but rather the gypsum core of drywall. Denton put 2 and 2 together from the house in disrepair that it was strewn about drywall, but Raven sadly didn't make that connection. Through violent sneezes and watery eyes, Raven suggested that they both leave immediately. Number 7, just plain crazy. Though he was only a WWE regular for a couple of years, Rico Constantino made his mark as a colourful and unconventional wrestler and manager. What some people might not realise about Rico is that prior to getting into wrestling, he was a police officer, bodyguard, and champion on American Gladiators, so he's not somebody most folks would want to try in a fight. One unruly civilian learned that the hard way when Rico was hoping to sleep his flight home from a WWE tour. On the flight to Vegas, one man, allegedly drunk and possibly pilled up, began attacking his fellow passengers. That's when a flight attendant quickly enlisted the snoozing Rico for help, recognizing him as a pro wrestler. Rico's understanding of how to neutralize an out-of-control person quickly came in handy, as he managed to subdue the man despite said passengers' repeated attempts at putting up a fight. The incident was serious enough to where the pilot wanted to perform an emergency landing, but Rico managed to get the man into zip-tie restraints. Even then, the rowdy individual tried biting and attacking Rico up until federal agents removed him upon landing. Poor Rico, all he wanted to do was sleep. Number 6, the Heatwave hostage crisis. With the financial means, an off-traveling wrestler could purchase something like a Winnebago for their own personal use, thus having a portable and comfy place to sleep instead of splurging on a hotel room. Famed ECW madman Sabu made just such an investment in the late 90s. In fact, en route to the 1998 Heatwave pay-per-view in Dayton, Ohio, he chauffeured 3 visitors from Japan: Masato Tanaka, Hayabusa, and Jinsei Shinzaki, aka Hakushi. That said, soon enough, they wouldn't be alone. While jetting to the pay-per-view, a speeding Sabu didn't initially notice the police car behind him, or the 4 other squad cars that soon joined the pursuit. It was only when Shinzaki alerted Sabu that the table-breaking veteran quickly pulled over. The wrestlers were all ushered from the vehicle and soon after detained, largely because the paranoid Japanese contingent wouldn't speak to the police. The cops inferred that because 1, Sabu didn't immediately pull over, and 2, the other wrestlers was silent and upset, that Sabu must have kidnapped the 3 Japanese nationals. A rash assumption, but thankfully the horde was freed after Sabu's wife, who spoke Japanese, arrived at the station to help interpret and get the story straight. Number 5, dull slushing finale. In North America, winters can be harsh depending on the specific region. If you're driving through Canada anywhere between September 1st and August 27th, you can expect your travels will be compromised by ice, snow, and the occasional Yeti armed with a giant club. In the continental US, between December and March, standard winter weather can make traveling from town to town more difficult than it needs to be. The Miz recalled a time when a post-Christmas 2010 run through New York posed such a hazard. Following a Sunday show at Madison Square Garden, Miz and John Morrison were faced with a 3-hour drive north to Albany. Well, ordinarily it would have taken 3 hours, it ended up taking 10 thanks to a freak blizzard. Rather than just wait out the storm, a determined Miz and Morrison drove under 10 miles an hour through the night on unsafe roads just to make it to their destination. Sounds pretty ballsy and courageous, right? Except the rest of the roster waited till daylight and the drive only took them 4.5 hours after crews worked to clear the roads for them. As a result, nobody missed the TV taping, not least of all our fearless and clearly overzealous dirt sheet duo. Number 4, losing your cool. For larger individuals, comfortable travel accommodations can be difficult to come by. When you're 7 feet tall like Paul White is, you quickly realise not everything is designed with people your size in mind. During his days in WCW, White ventured to Japan for a big event, only to learn that his hotel room was pretty damn small. Scaled for the giant, it was practically a walk-in closet, but forget walk-in closets, making matters worse was the state of his water closet. Understandably, after that long overseas flight, White felt the call of nature and sought out his hotel room's bathroom. He found the facilities to basically be the size of a porta potty, with a toilet sunk lower toward the ground. Sitting on the can was going to require unfathomable contortionism for a man his size. A combination of gurgling bowels and frustration led to the giant punching the bathroom wall as hard as he could, upon which the flimsy panels busted out into the hotel hallway. Hey, not ideal, but it did give White more room to take a dumpski. Fellow travelers and other wrestlers, including an incredulous Lex Luger, were all treated to a partial view of White's backside as he finished his business. Number 3, Lonely Hearts. Can you imagine a scenario where the reigning WWE champion goes missing? It sounds weird, but for a brief moment in the spring of 1994, that appeared to be an actual possibility. During a Federation stop in Hawaii, champion Bret the Hitman Hart and brother Owen, his on-screen rival at the time, decided to have some fun to celebrate Owen's recent birthday. They met up with some friends Bret knew from the islands and took a gas-powered rubber dinghy out into the Pacific for a little excursion. Many miles offshore, scoping out a barrier reef, the Harts and company were atop extremely deep waters when suddenly the craft stalled. They had run out of gas, with neither the shoreline nor help anywhere in sight. No flares, no communication devices, nothing. Panic set in as one of the other passengers made the gutsy decision to swim for it. In the meantime, Bret, Owen and the others baked in the hot sun, trying to keep calm. Over a half hour later, the group was more than relieved to see a speeding boat carrying their swimming friend, who triumphantly brandished a gas can. Bret and Owen continued battling each other on subsequent house shows, with few aware of their recent shared peril. Number 2, One Night in Syracuse. It has been a well-documented story and frankly a glaring omission from this Road Story series up until now. In the autumn of 1995, hours after defeating the British Bulldog on a Friday night house show in Syracuse, Intercontinental Champion Shawn Michaels joined Bulldog and the 1-2-3 Kid for a night on the town, stopping at Club 37 in the city just before the 2 a.m. curfew. As it turns out, they would come to regret that choice of venue. Over a week later, Michaels vacated the IC belt due to injuries. The WWF cover story was that Michaels was attacked by multiple US Marines in an unfair fight. In truth, Michaels was assaulted by just one Marine who pummeled him outside the club following an inside confrontation over a waitress that Michaels allegedly hit on that was also reportedly said Marine's ex-girlfriend. Michaels and his fellow wrestlers were apparently too inebriated to put up much of a fight outside, as the serviceman dragged Michaels from his car and repeatedly kicked him with his steel-toed boots. Michaels suffered 2 black eyes, a torn eyelid, and lacerations to his ears after his earrings were yanked out. As a result, HBK ended up missing 3 weeks of action. Number 1, get some ass. In most cases, instigating a bar fight with a professional wrestler goes very badly for the civilian agitator. Paul White broke a man's jaw once, while Haku has notably disfigured his share of liquored-up idiots. However, not every wrestler versus non-wrestler bar fight ends in a Mortal Kombat-style fatality. Sometimes they end with the aggressor getting an admittedly comical dose of humiliation. This was the case one night many moons ago when one poor bastard crossed a line with the legendary Terry Funk. Funk was with his wife Vicky at some watering hole when a large man approached the two, asking Vicky for a dance. An annoyed Funk went to object, upon which the man realized that he was talking to the renowned wrestler and offered a conciliatory handshake. Funk politely obliged, but the man tightened his grip, refusing to let go. A fight ensued, which resulted in Funk managing a double-leg takedown. The force of said takedown caused the man's pants to fall, so Funk followed up the way anybody would, by angrily biting the man's ass, chewing out a sizable chunk of cheek. Funk was later sued by the man and had to cough up $750. Small solace for the indignity of having the hardcore legend hand you your ass after spitting it to the floor first.